So you clicked on this video and you're probably thinking, what the fuck is this guy talking about? McFarlane, the best? Well, I got some bad news for you, Buster Brown, okay? There's a perfectly good reason why the NPD Group awarded McFarlane Toys as the #1 seller of action figures in the US and Canada for the year 2021. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because there was a lot of backlash. There was a lot of, hate, let's say. There's a lot of haters saying, how could McFarlane be the best? That's impossible. They make a shitty product. They don't know how to articulate their figures, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm here to give you a few examples as to why exactly McFarlane is in fact the best manufacturer and company producing action figures today. Now, of course, if you clicked on this video, I'm assuming that you are, like me, an adult action figure collector. Or you're just really bored. If so, welcome, but some of this may be a little lost on you, so try to keep up. Now, before we go into modern day McFarlane Toys, we do have to look at what they contributed in the past. Now, I was 12 years old, standing at Toys R Us the first time I saw the Spawn action figure and the Spawn action figure line. It was 1994, and at the time they were known as Todd Toys before changing their name into McFarlane Toys. But I will have to say, for even my young mind, I can comprehend that they were trying to make a bit of a better product. Yes, those initial Spawn toys, let's be honest, were toyetic as fuck. I mean, just look at Violator, for God's sakes. He was a freaking bendy. Jeez. I don't think they'd be able to get away with this today. But, compared to everything else at the time, they did have a lot more to offer. Matte plastics, stuff that is normally molded onto the figure buck directly was now actually a separate piece. For example, Spawn's chains. And they included a comic book. They felt more mature. And as time went on with McFarlane Toys, we got better sculpt details, we got more paint, more lifelike likenesses, licenses from horror movies. I mean, figures that we normally would never see at all at the time was happening thanks to McFarlane. Now, granted, we did get the staction figure phase, and let's be honest, that was no fun because we are action figure collectors. We like our figures to move and articulate. Still nice pieces nonetheless, but there was that moment there. But now we're back into full swing with action figures. Whether if you like them or not is a different story, but McFarlane Toys is making now what we can call classic action figures once again. In short, the contributions they made, just adding all those extra details, it pushed other companies to do more, and companies like NECA and Mezco wouldn't be where they are today if it wasn't for the foundation laid down by McFarlane. And that has to be acknowledged. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm sure you've been through this scenario, especially if you're an experienced collector. You see that item, right? Oh, you can't wait to see it at retail. Oh, wait, but guess what, though? Retail's a crapshoot. So you, as a security blanket, you pre-order it, right? So you're going to sit there, wait for your pre-order, right? And a lot of times, some of these pre-orders could be, 2, 3, 5 months away or what have you. But then you go to your favorite action figure Facebook page or forum, and you see that there are spottings of it. You're like, wait a second. This thing said it wasn't going to come out till August. It's only March. Why the hell are people seeing these? And then you're sitting there, sitting in your own piss, waiting forever because retail is inept, or simply because you live in a heavily scalped area where there's just scalpers everywhere. And by you, I mean me, because that's my experience. Par for the course. Well, this is an area where McFarlane Toys shines above other companies. And I say this because usually when they announce something, they'll give a window of time, so let's just say, Wave 7 or whatever, you should be seeing this in June, we'll pick June since it's June. And there's a high probability you're going to see it in June. And not only going to see it at retail, you're also going to see those pre-orders being filled. You're also going to see online stores where they're just available, like Amazon, Big Bad Toy Store. Granted, save for a few, We're maybe one or two, or maybe a month give or take, or 2 months give or take out of line. For the most part, the wait is usually not that long, and it's usually on the money. And that's what I like about McFarlane. Another thing, too, since I brought it up, retail. The nightmare that retail can be right now. Well, these things are actually at retail. I mean, is it really a shock that they were awarded, a #1 seller prize or whatever it was that they gave them, Because let's face it, the casual buyer is still the highest buying potential. Okay, so let's say you're not an action figure collector. Okay, let's just say you're some person and you have a nephew and they want a Spider-Man figure for their birthday, right? Well, guess what? You're not gonna fucking find Spider-Man, or at least maybe the one they're looking for or what have you, because the ones that you can find look really cheap, and the ones that are nice, well, they're nice for a reason, but stocked wise, like at least in my experience lately, Marvel Legends are practically almost non-existent, unless if it's the fucking Eternals again. I digress. When somebody sees that really cool Batman as a substitute, well, they're going to pick up that really cool Batman. And yes, whether if you think it's cool or not or whatever, point is that the casual buyer who's unaware, all they see is a cool Batman. And that counts for a lot. Ultimately, retail is king. Okay, so this one's more of a recent development, but you gotta love inflation, right? I mean, God, $27.99 for a Marvel Legend. Probably utilizing a Bucky Cap mold. Oh wait, no, but the limbs on this one are pinless. Alright, look, you know what? I love Marvel Legends. I'm not here to tear down another company or to say that their product is crap. But the point is that, though, we're paying a lot more for essentially the same thing we've been paying for. And it's a bummer, man. It's a downer. Well, McFarlane, they haven't raised their prices, and they said they aren't going to unless if they absolutely have to. Now, I have seen some varying prices on some things, like, one of the more recent offerings is Vox Machina, which I really like. And, yeah, I did see that those are $24.99. But for the other stuff, the main core stuff, the DC, the Spawn, everything else is kind of staying at the prices we know, which is that $19.99 price point. Well, one of the excuses that other companies like to give is production costs. And again, a lot of times they're utilizing the same mold, just making little tweaks to it, and that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. Hell, there are some companies that's their business model. Masters of the Universe comes to mind. To be honest with you, you almost feel a little weird if they gave something a special sculpt, unless it's like a giant or something like that. Always get a unique sculpt with a McFarlane toy. I mean, very seldom do you see shared parts. Granted, it does render us a lot of variants, like unmasked figures and things like that. And I get it, they're just trying to make their money back on that sculpt. And to be honest with you, how many people out there, collectors at least, buy two of the same figures so they could display one with the alternate heads that they come with? So I mean, if you have people like that, hey, McFarlane's catering to a very specific market. Personally, I just buy one of something because, fucking I got 7 kids, okay? Like, got a budget. But at least I could look at my, 10 or a dozen, I don't know, I have a lot of Batman figures. And that's not even nearly how many they've made, but I want to say only 2 of them might share some parts. The rest of them are all individually, uniquely sculpted and retooled every time from head to toe. So, I mean, yeah, so when tooling cost is being an excuse, you kind of have to wonder, well, how much so? I mean, now granted, I know how much molds cost in general, so I mean, it is expensive. I'm not negating that. But again, though, you're at least getting a unique piece, or at least a more unique looking piece, if you're not too worried about something being uniform. Granted, there are those times where there are scaling issues, so I will agree there, because I am a bit of a scaling Nazi myself. I mean, Superman should be a smidge taller than Batman, in my humble opinion. We can't just talk about McFarlane without discussing the Kickstarter. Now, sure, some of you collectors know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the 25th anniversary Spawn figure and how McFarlane wanted to bring this into stores to us, and retail basically shut him down. So in their infinite wisdom, companies like Red Mart and Blue Mart, because their proper names don't deserve to come out of these sweet lips, Needless to say, they went ahead and said, sorry, but we're not going to carry Spawn product. There's not a strong enough marketing vehicle. There's not a strong enough fan base. There's no TV show happening right now. There's no movie, no video game, and fuck the comics. That's all well and good. But no fan base, really? So, anyhow, McFarlane went directly to his fan base. Instead of tucking his tail between his legs like some other company might and make the next shitty product available. Instead, he went to us and said, listen, I want to make this figure. I want to give this to you. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for $100,000 to fund this project. He got over $3 million. Not a strong enough fan base? Really? Case in point, you do have to wonder how much retail influences what we get and don't get based on what fits their needs. It didn't matter what retail said, we wanted this figure. Now, of course, whether if it's a good figure or not, that's completely up to you. Personally, I feel it's actually lacking, but I respect more about what this figure represents, and it represents the fact that somebody told retail, they told Red Mart, they told Blue Mart, suck it. Gotta respect that, man. Now, the last thing that I want to bring up is Todd McFarlane himself, the man. When I think of McFarlane Toys, I actually think of him, not necessarily the company. Like, when I think of Hasbro, their logo pops in my head. When I think of Mattel, their logo pops in my head. Maybe respectable products from each company. When I think of McFarlane, I literally think of the man himself. I think about the guy, because that's how involved he is. He's still a fan, and you want that. Now, granted, yes, he has his own ideals that we all don't agree with, like weird articulation choices, the fact that he doesn't like articulating figures, he would rather a static piece, and I mean, that's all well and good, but for the most part, though, he's still a fan of the source material, he's still a fan of the artwork, he's still in touch with us. If there's an update, he gets on that, camera and says, hey, here's this thing I want to show you, here's this update, here's a product sample from the factory, and I'm sorry, but, for as much as I love Hasbro's and Mattel's products, and yeah, if you've been collecting, and if you're heavily involved in the community, you might know who's who, but I'm going to be honest with you, I can't name who any of their CEOs are, and you really don't see any of them getting in front of a camera, unless it's for some sort of fan event, and no offense, but some of those people, they look like they're just they hired them that day and said, here, talk about G.I. Joe, talk about this. McFarlane knows what he's talking about, okay? And I appreciate that. And even if it's addressing complaints, they'll address them, one of the things that was a complaint was the side eye, when figures are doing, that shit where they're looking from the side. Now, me personally, I don't mind it. Granted, it does limit posability, but at least it's something different. But the point is that going forward, they're going to eliminate that because it's been brought up, And these figures are getting better. The first Batman, I'm not going to lie, I passed. It looked like crap. More recent offerings? Nice. So in closing, these were just some examples as to why McFarlane is the best action figure company making action figures. I'm not here to say they're making the best action figures, okay? I'll tell you what. These are the best action figures being made right now. But I gotta hand it to McFarlane, though, because they are trying, they are getting better, their products are getting more interesting, and honestly, are they really bad at any point? Compared to like some of the shit we had in the 80s and 90s, I mean, they're articulated well, they're sculpted well enough. Sometimes I wonder how much of it is just us being spoiled because we're used to getting all this crazy high-end stuff. But for price point's sake, they are great toys. No, they're not the best. They're not perfect. They make their mistakes. But if you were to take how McFarlane Toys runs their business model, their company, and let's say have Hasbro or Mattel run it the same exact way, I can best damn guarantee you would be a lot happier with Hasbro and Mattel as companies if they were being run like McFarlane Toys. And that is why McFarlane Toys is the best company making action figures right now. Well, thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, you know what to do. So, remember when I said McFarlane is the best company making action figures, but they don't make the best action figures? Well, that holds up here. I mean, kind of hard to see in this picture, but look at this guy. He's looking to the left, yet his right hand is the only one capable of holding his accessory. Who writes this shit?